And that's really the way that you hit that seven figure in additional revenue from the book, because you're bringing in more clients, you're bringing in better clients, usually bigger cases.
You made that one-time investment of $30,000, and now you have an evergreen marketing product that can be repurposed a number of different ways.
You're losing a lot of money every day that you don't have the book. Every day it's not out there working for you, bringing in new clients, you are losing money.
Welcome to Grow Law Firm Podcast. I have an amazing guest with me here today. Steve Gordon is a 5-time published author. Steve Gordon helps professionals and experts, like attorneys, become million-dollar published authors. He actually has worked out a formula for that, and he's been doing it for the last, if I'm not mistaken, 13 or 14 years. Steve, welcome to the show.
Sasha, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. First, what led you to go into this business? I know that you used to do something completely different prior to this.
Yeah, I'm a recovering engineer, and I grew an engineering consulting firm for about 12 years. Started out of college, got asked to take over as CEO when I was 28, and then grew that firm. And I was leading the sales and marketing in that firm, and we were doing some interesting things. But I found that was way more interesting than the engineering we were doing, and so I decided in 2010 to leave that and start another company and help professional service businesses grow using very effective marketing. And so that's how we sort of started. We didn't start off writing books for people. It really wasn't until a few years later that we got into that. I wrote my first book in 2014, so it's actually, this year has been 10 years, and just transformed the business overnight. I looked around, and all of the other consultants in the industry that were successful had written a book. I thought, I got to have a book. But I failed twice trying to write that first book. It just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get all the way through it successfully. Finally, the third try, I was able to get it finished. I wrote that book in about an hour a day over 35 days. And that was really the beginning of the process that we use with our clients now. So fast forward to launching that book, I had just 15 friends, colleagues from around the industry help share the book when we launched it. And we were just blown away. Over 5,000 people got a copy of the book in the first week. So we went from a tiny 1.5 person marketing firm in Tallahassee, Florida. And for those who are listening who don't know where Tallahassee is, we're the 11th largest market in Florida, which means we're not a very big place. So we go from those sort of humble beginnings to, within a week, I'm getting inquiries from clients all over the US and all over the world, and transformed the business overnight. So that was sort of how we got started in creating books. So a few of our clients saw that and said, hey, can you do that for me? And of course, we helped them with it. And I noticed that every time we could take someone in professional services and get them to write a book, they did exponentially better than every other client that we worked with. And so now that's all we focus on.
Super interesting. How does writing and publishing a book translate into dollars, or specifically $1 million, because the formula is $1 million author?
Well, so the answer is not by selling books. Most of our clients come to us because they're looking to use the book to attract new clients to the firm. They want to bring in, new cases, and that's really the way that you hit that seven figure in additional revenue from the book, because you're bringing in more clients, you're bringing in better clients, usually bigger cases, and you're doing that because you're now seen as the trusted authority in your marketplace.
So let's play out a scenario. Let's say that you are working with a founder of a family law firm. 80% of the work they do are divorces. What kind of book should this founder of the law firm, the principal of the law firm, publish? And how would that person use it to leverage, or how would they leverage that book to grow their business?
So it depends on their market, right? So we're working with a founder right now who has a family law firm in Southeast Florida, and she's right. Her firm focuses on divorces for men, and so the book is around all of the issues that men struggle with as they're going through divorce, what the things they're worried about, and then it reveals a little bit of her process for how she helps them, and part of that obviously is taking them through the legal process, and part of that is just in the interactions and the sort of strategy that she brings to the table and thinking through how do we overcome these problems, because it's not always a one size fits all approach for all of her clients. And so those are the sorts of things, as we're working with lawyers, that we want to pull out of them. And a lot of times I find that for a lot of professionals, it's difficult for them to see what's really valuable within the firm and within the practice of what they're doing. So having that outside eye sometimes really helps to pinpoint where the value is.
Mm. So I'm very curious about this. Let's imagine that she has already published this book. It's been a full year since the book was published. And now her business is, let's say, 30% larger. What did she have to do to increase that revenue in those 12 months using that book?
So first thing she's got to do is launch the book successfully.
What does that
So
mean?
when
What
you
does that mean to launch a book successfully?
well, so when you publish a book, you have sort of this honeymoon phase when the book is new and it's newsworthy within your market, within your network, that you've published a book. And you'd be shocked at the level of support that you'll find from the people in your professional network when you publish the book. So all of your referral sources, all of your past clients, they all get very excited. All your current clients get extremely excited, because now this is confirmation that they're connected with an important person. And the very first thing that we do with our clients is we want to activate all of that goodwill, and we want to get those people sharing the book. And what we find is that when we do that, within the first few days or weeks, that the the initial clients begin coming in from the book, because for most professionals, they've got deals that are hiding in their network. There are people that need their help that either don't know about them, or, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, Sasha, but you ever had somebody come up to you and say, "Oh, I never realized you did that. I just hired, the company down the street,"
Sure.
right? Happens all the time. And that's because we often take for granted what people know about us. So when we launch the book, we want to get it out into your network really quickly and get it to spread through the network, because that's going to bring almost immediate new business back in. Our record so far in launching a book is 5 hours. So 5 hours after launching the book, one of our clients landed a new $38,000 engagement. And it was because someone in his network, he shared it, followed our launch process, shared that the book was published. One of his former clients got the book, knew someone who needed his services, and it was the prompt that that person needed to make that referral. And so by, like, we launched the book at 8 o'clock in the morning, by 1:45 in the afternoon, he had walked out with a new contract. Um, and everybody has that sort of new business that's just nearby and hiding, and we want to reveal it really quickly. So the launch process is going to last maybe 45 days or 60 days. And so that's the first phase to get to that $1 million level. The second phase is now creating what we call the book ATM. So you want to create an ongoing evergreen marketing process. And I know you guys are really good at helping law firms with this, that leverages the book. And so to do that, it might be looking at what you're already doing. If you're already running advertising, for example, you may just want to add the book into the advertising mix, either as something that you're using to retarget with to leads that haven't converted, or as a lead generator itself. I have found that books are the single best lead generation tool that you could ever find. We've tried all sorts of things over the last 15 years. There's very little that will beat a book because it's got a high perceived value by the prospect. They think they're going to act, they're really going to get some meat out of it, and they should. It's got very low risk, so there's no risk that someone's going to jump out of the book and sell them legal services, and it's also generally very low cost. So most professionals will either give away or sell at a low cost a copy of their book to a potential client. And so for a prospect, it's everything that they want. It gives them the ability to really understand who you are and what you're about, and do that in a very low risk way. And from the law firm perspective, you now get to put all of your best ideas out there and let those ideas go do the selling for you. So that when someone comes to you, they're sort of indoctrinated in the way that you think and the way that you approach things. And so the very best experience that you could ever hope to have is when somebody's coming into your office for that intake meeting and they've got a copy of the book, and you see sticky notes coming out the side, and they open it up, you see they've highlighted things, and they start quoting back to you chapter and verse from your method for helping them. It just makes sales so easy.
That's brilliant. Let me use an example that I learned over a decade ago, visiting a marketing conference here in Chicago. I think it was 2012. There was a guest speaker who I got to meet, and he's just an incredible individual. His name is Dr. Berson. So Dr. Berson is a dentist, was a dentist. When he was going to dental school, he wasn't thinking about becoming a great dentist. He was looking for a profession that would always feed his family, that would also give him an opportunity to build a substantial business. The issue that he had while he was in dental school, he was looking for also information how to grow the business. Now, this is going back to 2000, so let's say 2005, 2006, somewhere there. And as he was looking for that information, what he realized was that dental business had a few specialties, and the best specialty that he liked was orthodontics. He was like, I never wanted to do fillings. I never wanted to do crowns. I just wanted to have as clean of a job as possible. And it doesn't get much cleaner than working with teens or preteens and doing their braces. Plus, dollar value was substantial. But then he was like, all right, how do I build a business out of it rather than a practice? So he was looking for a way, when he already started, he was looking for a way to scale things up. But what he saw was everyone in his market, which was Kansas City, was doing very, very incestuous type of marketing and advertising. Back to school special, $500 off of braces. Invisalign, $350 off. Everybody advertised the same thing. Now he started doing the same thing, and business was okay. He was making money, but he realized that as long as he does this, he is forever going to be a practitioner because there was no way for him to scale it up. He was doing what everybody else was doing, and everybody in the world of orthodontics has one or two practitioners. That's the model. You can't really scale it up. You can only advertise the $350 off of braces so much. So one day he came across a very different concept, which was, and I'm going to promise to tie the dots here, connect the dots here. He learned a concept, the difference between a sales cycle and a buying cycle. And a sales cycle begins the moment that a patient would call his office to schedule an appointment. And it's not even the patient, it was the economic buyer, which was always the mom, never the dad, but always the mom who would schedule an appointment. And within a week or two, the mom and the kid was in his office, they were in his office, and they would either buy or not buy. More often than not, if they made their way to his office, they would buy. His close rate was something like 90%. And the selling cycle was about 2 weeks. So from the moment they would call his office to the moment that they signed on the dotted line and ran that credit card, 2 weeks. But the buying cycle concept that he learned was the buying cycle starts much earlier, way earlier than the sales cycle. The buying cycle begins when the prospective customer, client, or patient says, I think I have a problem or a need or a want. So he started this discovery. He would ask every mom, when did you first think about getting your child braces? And through series of interviews that took months, he learned that sometime approximately 11 months before they would call his office, there would be two moms standing on the sidelines of some sort of a sporting event, either a soccer field, a basketball court, something. And they would be talking, and one mom would say, "Hey, we got our fill in the blank braces." And the mom would say, "Oh, is it time?" And the mom said, "Yeah, we thought it was time." And then she would go home and she would tell her husband, "Did you hear that Susan got?" And the husband would go, "We don't need that." And she would think, "The hell we don't." And the next thing she would do is she would go online and start digging up information about something that she has very little knowledge of. She would start researching, how much do braces cost? What is the process? How long does it take to straighten out the teeth? Will they be wearing their braces all throughout high school and college? Because those things are not comfortable. She would have a standard list of questions that she didn't know she had, but she would inevitably go through those questions. And when she would bring the office of an orthodontist, the list of questions that she had, because she did her research online, would be about yay long. But she started off with a list that was about yay big. So Dr. Berson, without knowing it, walks into this multi-million dollar idea. He's like, all right, we're going to continue advertising $350 off of braces, but I need to get into this conversation that she's having in her head 11 and a half months earlier. How do I do that? I'm going to write a book. And this book is going to be for moms and kids and dads, because we're going to talk about finances and how it's going to all pay off one day, because your kid's not going to hate you because they're 22 and they're dating and their kid teeth are like that, like this. So how do you write a book? So he hired someone, and the way that he created that book was he thought about every single question that a mom would ever have, that a kid would ever have, and that a dad would ever have. And he wrote a book that was mom friendly, dad friendly, and kid friendly. And then he started promoting that book through Google Ads and in magazines. Back then, this is, we're talking about 15 years ago, magazines were still a big thing, much bigger thing than they are today, but they still exist. And through all other media where moms would consume information, he started advertising, not $350 off of braces, but he started advertising the book. He told us that his competitors thought that he was just plain stupid. Not only was he plain stupid for creating the book, he was plain stupid because he would give it away. He would charge $1 for shipping the book. And the reason why he charged $1, he wants to make sure that it was not just a BS inquiry. So he had moms pay $1, and everybody would pay $1 for that book because it made their research process that much easier. Fast forward a few years, 2012 or 13, I forget the exact year, Dr. Berson's on the stage explaining how in few years he went from being a superstar model, which means there is one practitioner and everybody else supports that practitioner, to employing 20 orthodontists. He gave full credit to exponentially growing the business within something like 4 or 5 years, to learning the concept of difference between the buying cycle and the sales cycle, writing the book and promoting the book instead of promoting $350 of braces. I recently looked him up. It's been years since he sold his business to a corporate dental company. I assume he walked away with, let's say, 20 orthodontists. Let's say each one was doing $1 million in revenue, $20 million in revenue. It's a professional service, 20% net profit margin, $4 million a year. Because of his size, he probably sold it for 7 to times EBITDA. So $4 or $5 million times 7 to 8 times, 35 to $40 million, because he wrote the book. It's a very significant ROI there on writing the right
Enormous.
type of book. But now let's talk about the mechanics of writing a book, because lawyers are experts, marketers are experts, all professional service providers, if they're worth anything, are experts in what they do. But sitting down and writing a book is not something anyone wants to do. Let me take it back. I think a lot of us want to do it, we just won't do it. We might actually start and then fail to complete, let alone publish. So what's the mechanics of successfully publishing a book that actually generates that additional wealth, not just revenue, but actually wealth in the business and beyond?
Well, so let's talk first about what goes in the book, okay? Because what I love about that story is that he thought through all of the questions, which are really roadblocks to somebody being able to become a patient of his or a client. He thought through all of that and put that into the book. So what I see a lot of professionals do, and the big mistake that they make, is they think that this is all about, I got to go prove how smart I am. I got all these letters after my name, and so now let me go flex that muscle. And that's the expert way to do things.
Yeah.
But that's the wrong way to approach this, right? This has got to be approached from the perspective of your buyer, of your future client. And so the way we like to think about that is that a book has three parts. It has a beginning, which begins with what is your ideal client really struggling with? What's keeping them up at night? What are the problems that they're going to turn to you to solve? That they don't know how to think about it. They don't know what all of the implications of it are. If you can connect with them there, you'll have their attention. And so we start the book there. And at the end of the book, the other sort of bookend to the process is, over here you want to paint a picture of what's the future look like? What's possible if you've resolved the problem that they have? And that's great that you've got the start and the end point of a journey for them. But clients want to see that you have a process that you've thought through that will transform their problem into that bigger, better future that you're giving them a vision of. And that's a bridge. We call that the unique mechanism. And so the unique mechanism is usually, what are the 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 steps that you take someone through that get them from point A to point B. So that's the first thing, is that this isn't a book that's going to teach them everything that you know. I get a lot of professionals who really get worried, well, if I put it all in there, they won't need me. But do-it-yourselfers are not good clients. You don't want them. So if somebody takes your book and they can go do it, great. You've added to your karma balance in the world. But the clients who are going to pay you don't want to do it themselves. They want to work with an expert who can do it for them, and they want to see that you've got a process. That you can demonstrate that in the book. And the other part of that fear of putting too much in there is that if you've been doing this, you mentioned it a minute ago, Sasha, like if you've been doing this for more than a few years, you're more of an expert than your clients will ever be. You've already forgotten more than they know. We couldn't put everything that you know into a book and keep it at 1,000 pages because you know more than that. And we're talking about writing a book that's easily consumable. It's maybe 100 to 150 pages long. There's no way we're getting everything that you know in there. We're not going to be able to teach someone to do what you do. We just want to give them confidence that you're the right person so that they know who to trust. That's the thing that most people are walking around when they've got a big problem to solve. And if they're coming to talk to a lawyer, they have a big problem. No one comes to a lawyer unless there's a big problem. And so they want to know that you understand the problem, you've got a plan to fix it, and they don't know who to trust. They're not qualified to judge your credentials over someone else. It's great. You're, best lawyers in America, or on whatever other list that you're on. Those are all great things, but really, they really want to work with the one who wrote the book. They want to know that you can demonstrate to them that there's a process that you're going to follow that will solve their problem. And that's what you get an opportunity to demonstrate in the book. And so first we got to know what goes in it. And then how do we get it written? Everybody likes to think that the writing of the book is this big project that should take forever. And I've talked to so many lawyers who will tell me, yeah, I'm going to try and do this. And I've got one Friday afternoon every month set aside to get this done. And a year from now, I should be done. Well, that's a bad answer for two reasons. One, if you're only working on it one Friday a month, then you're going to spend at least half of that time trying to figure out where you left off before. So you're not going to get very far very fast. And what we see when people try that is they end up going down rabbit holes, and it's very hard for them to finish the book. But the other problem there is that you're losing a lot of money every day that you don't have the book. Every day it's not out there working for you, bringing in new clients, you are losing money. So our approach is a little bit different. We want to compress the time, and we do that by working with your brain, the way the brain wants to work. See, if you create a really great roadmap for the content in the book, and I kind of outline what that content structure is. And when we work with a lawyer, we take them through and get a really granular outline for what's going to go in the book, so that when they go to write, it's very, very easy to know what comes next. And then if they can devote just 30 minutes or an hour a day over the course of about 30 days, they'll have the book done. And it won't feel hard or difficult. It won't be something where they're continually going to cocktail parties and say, yeah, I'm still working on that book. And people are going, it's not done yet. But we're trying to work with the way the brain wants to work. The brain's really great at doing focused bursts of intense thinking. And that's what that 30-minute a day or an hour a day is to get the book written. And if you've got a really great roadmap, then you just peek ahead and say, okay, well, what are the next mileposts on my roadmap? Where am I going to go tomorrow? And then you just go about your day, you go to sleep. Your subconscious will write the next piece of the book for you. You'll wake up, and most of our clients tell us that they'll wake up in the morning once they get 2 or 3 days into this, and their brain adjusts to what they're doing. And they'll tell us, I have to run to my keyboard every morning to get it out. And so if you're going to write it yourself, that's the easy way to do it. The easier way to do it, which about 50% of our clients choose to do, is they just have us write it for them, and we just do about four 2-hour interviews and pull it all out of their head, and then they don't have to do any work after that, never have to touch the keyboard.
How long does it take to go from the first interview to actually holding a book in your hands?
It takes about 60 days to get to that point. In about 3 weeks after the first interview, they'll have a first draft to look at. I like to get that first draft back really quickly, because even if it's at a place where it needs a lot of revision, and sometimes they do, it's far easier to do that with something concrete in front of you than to just continue talking about a theoretical book. That's why we do the interviews very quickly, and then we go write very quickly, and then we adjust. It's just a much more efficient way to get it done, and it results in better books.
Super interesting. So if you pursue the DIY method, the do-it-yourself method for writing the book, not necessarily publishing it, but writing it, which is doable. This is where one of my favorite sayings, discipline equals freedom, truly rings true. Because if you are committed, and I think you have to do it like first thing in the morning, because if you don't, then it's going to take the back seat, and chance of you actually being creative at the end of the workday. Is it possible? It's possible. It's just diminished. The mentor who taught me the saying, discipline equals freedom, is a 5 or 6 times best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. And he says that I used to schedule my writings for when I had time, but every day. Then I would group them all at the end of the day. And then I realized that the reason why I write the book is to have the long-term impact on the readers, the community, and my business, and thus my family. Thus, it is a strategic priority. Strategic priority takes precedence over tactical priorities, which is my daily shit that I do day to day, right? I don't write the book every single day, 365 days a year. I need to write 1,000 words every morning, 6 days a week, and I will have a rough draft of my book within a month. And then I'm going to have an editor review it, give me suggestions for improvements, or do make those suggestions. I will review it, and we're going to have a book within 2-3 months. So this is where discipline equals freedom. But I really like the other formula, which is done for you, which, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to recap it just to make sure that the listeners, viewers got it correctly, and I got it correctly. 4 meetings, 2 hours each meeting, gets you to a rough draft manuscript within a matter of weeks. And approximately within 60 days, you actually have a book. Is that about right?
That's it. Yeah, and we do those 4 meetings 4 consecutive days. So we meet on a Monday,
Mm,
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's all compressed into 1 week. And then, for that author, they're done at that point. There's very little left for them to do other than review drafts as they come back.
got it. So as a marketer, I'm thinking about the value, like the value that Dr. Berson was able to squeeze out of the book, which was probably the neighborhood of, again, like 30, 40, 50, $60 million. I have no idea what was the total impact of writing that book, which completely uh, put him in a league of his own, because you do not very often see an orthodontist office that dominates a metropolitan area. You don't. It's usually one or two. That's it, not 20. So let's talk about ROI. What is a cost, or what is an investment, rather? Because I want to think about this as an investment. How much of an investment should we be thinking about when producing a typical length book, which I see quite a few of them behind you? I think that size like 5.5 by 8 inches, give or take, and they're probably roughly like 30, 40,000 words, give or take, somewhere in that neighborhood. Maybe a little bit skinnier, maybe a little bit fatter, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Is that about right?
So I like to think in terms of the page count. We like
Hmm.
for them to be about 100 to 150 pages.
Okay.
That's a great sweet spot.
Yeah.
Shorter than that actually works well, but
Hmm.
I find that people don't look at them as being as authoritative because they're really thin. Amazon has got some great statistics that books over about 60 pages, the consumption rate beyond page 60
Yep.
really starts to diminish
Absolutely.
dramatically. Um, that said, we find that books that are below 100 pages tend not to feel like, wow, this is a real expert here. So 100 to 150 pages is a good range. It's authoritative, and yet it's not so long that when it's sitting on the coffee table of a potential client's living room, they don't look at it and go, wow, that's way too much work, I'm not going to read that.
Mhm.
They look at it and they go, oh, I could read that in an hour or two. And and they can breeze through it. So that's what we're really looking to create. And so to get there, that's probably closer to a 20 or 25,000 word book.
Yep.
And laid out again in the specific way that we talked about.
So before it goes to print, what would be my investment?
So ranges depending on how we end up working together, but anywhere between maybe 12 or 15,000 on the low end to between 30 and 35,000 or 35 and 40,000 on the high end.
So let's average it out and call it 25 grand, somewhere there, right? And then you publish, let's say, I don't know, 500 copies, and you start distributing them through marketing channels and to existing connections, whether it's referral partners, former clients, current clients, whoever may be in a position to say, hey, I know. So when it comes to divorces, right, the stats are in slightly over 50%. I have a very close group of friends. There are four of us. We go back to high school days, 30 years. Guess how many of us got divorced? Two out of four. It's 50%, So like one went through divorce, that's the other one, hey, who'd you use? Right? So if there was a book from my former attorney, I'd be like, yeah, check this out. So what do they cost to print? Like $5 a unit, give or take, somewhere there?
So for a paperback book, it's actually less than that.
Less
It's
than that.
it's about $3 or
Hmm.
$3.50 per copy. You don't have to order them in bulk like the old days. I mean, it used to be you had to clear out space in the garage. You'd have to, go get your spouse to buy into the idea that we're now going to put books everywhere. But I I tell our clients order them in boxes of 100 to 200 at a time so that you don't have a storage issue. Amazon will print them and send them to you in a couple of weeks when you need more. It's very, very easy, very inexpensive. Hardback books are a little bit more expensive, but not ridiculously so. There may be $8 to $10 a copy, somewhere in that ballpark.
So let me sum this up. From A to Z, from the very beginning to having, let's say, 1,000 copies in your garage. I'll just use this your garage, right? You're looking at approximately a little under 3 months and around $30,000. Now, if you practice family law, the example that we used earlier, your average not contested divorce is about 15K. So if you're the solo practitioner at your law firm and you have zero expense associated with providing the services, just you have no paralegal, nothing. That's 15 grand. That's just like pure revenue to the firm. 2 cases covers that investment. But a book is an evergreen thing. Like, you do not expect family law to change dramatically where you're like, I got to start from scratch. I need to write a whole new book. It's not going to happen, right? So you made that one-time investment of $30,000, and now you have an evergreen marketing product that can be repurposed a number of different ways. I, as a marketer, think that every chapter could become a blog post, an article on third-party websites that are authoritative, like so many different ways to slice it and dice it to create additional streams of incoming business. So I am thinking that, again, by creating such a book, your ROI probably within a year or two could easily be 10x, like easily. And over time, it would be substantially more. What I do find very interesting, that although you exist and there are other companies that provide similar service that I have seen, it is incredibly rare that you would run into a law firm owner or a lawyer that has actually written a book on the subject matter that they're actually expert in, despite this being a relatively small investment. When I say relatively small investment, again, like 2 cases, 2 clients pay for it. Why do you think that is?
I think for a lot of lawyers, they have a fear of being judged by their peers. We see this. You make a face, but
Uh,
we go through
no, I
this
believe
even
it.
with
I believe it. Yeah.
clients that have come on and have made the investment, and then they get really concerned about what their peers are going to think. And I understand that. You're coming out of an educational background, the training that you've had, where every I has to be dotted, every T crossed, everything cited. But this isn't that, and this isn't for that audience. And my standard answer for them is, unless they're paying you, they don't get a vote. It doesn't matter what any other attorney thinks,
Yeah.
unless for some reason they are the client or they're the primary referral source, in which case we're going to write a book that's targeted to them. But if what we're really concerned about is that client that's going to hire you, then this is for them, and they're the only ones that count. And the way that we measure effectiveness is how many of those people now get the book, trust you because of that, and now become a client, either one time, in the case of more transactional practices, or they become a lifelong client. And so we work with folks in estate planning law, where they're getting the client once and taking them through the estate plan, and then they're maintaining the trusts and all of the other things, and put them on a long-term subscription, where they pay annually as a member of the firm, a member client of the firm. So there's all kinds of different models and ways to do it, but the ROI is really never an issue. You mentioned like two clients in that scenario would pay for it right out of the gate, easily. Our goal is that you land your first client within 90 days of the day we start. And so that, I want our clients to have paid for this process. I want it to be free to them within 3 to 6 months from the day we start, so that this is now an asset in the business. And that's the other thing about a book that's, I think, a little bit different. I like to divide marketing into assets on one side and tactics on the other. And you need both, but I see a lot of people jump from tactic to tactic to tactic. I'm going to post on Facebook. Now I'm going to do Instagram Reels. That's the latest thing. I'm going to do Google ads, and then Facebook ads and TikTok ads. Those are all great. You need all of those, but you also need marketing assets. And really, if you're smart about it, you're going to invest in the marketing asset first. And a book is a marketing asset. Once you have it, once you've invested in it, once you own it, it pays dividends for the long term. If you stop paying for Google ads tomorrow, they stop running them tomorrow. And if you're working with, an agency, I know, Sasha, you guys work with a lot of firms to help them with this. The very best thing that you can do to help that agency be successful is give them an authority piece like a book,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to do better on lead gen with advertising. It's going to do better on social, because they're going to be able to go into your book and you don't have to come up with new content every week. You just say, hey, here's the book. And they're going to be able to go into the book and give you video scripts for long form videos and shorts and podcasts. They're going to be able to pull articles out of that. All kinds of things. And you're never going to have to really do any work to come up with content, because you've done it all. And you did it in, like if you go through our interview process, you did it in 8 hours over 4 days, instead of hour after hour after hour, month after month after month to feed the machine.
Makes perfect sense. And what you brought up is super interesting to me, that many lawyers may be shy when it comes to actually creating and publishing a book because they feel like they would be judged by their peers. But guess what? Dr. Berson was certainly judged by his peers. And he doesn't give a flying you know what, because he left all his way to the bank with his 30, 40, 50 million dollars. It doesn't matter what other people think at all. It may matter 10 years later when you're running an exceptionally profitable business and they wonder how you did it. And then you can laugh it down.
That's just it. I mean, if what you're doing is legal, moral, and ethical,
Yeah.
then what are you worried about?
Yeah. So true. There are so many other things that I wish to cover, but we're running out of time. Perhaps we can do a part 2 sometime in the future. But for now,
I
for
would love
those
to.
people who are listening to this, watching this, reading this, where can they go to learn more about how you work with professionals like law firm owners and help them generate additional revenues through book publishing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Our website is milliondollarauthor.io. So milliondollarauthor.io. And we've actually set up a page just for listeners of the podcast. So if you go to milliondollarauthor.io/grow law firm, what you'll find there is a free copy of my latest book, which is called The $1 Million Book. There's some other free resources that'll help you if you're thinking about writing your own book, some things that'll help get you started. And there's also a link on there if you want to talk to me personally. I'd love to speak with any of your listeners so they can book a time on my calendar.
An amazing offer. Steve, been a wealth of resource. Thank you so much.
Sasha, this has been a blast. Thank you for having me on, and love the podcast. Love what you're doing.
Thanks.